It's very clear China's economy is in trouble. And I think one of the latest things that has come out that really kind of shocked a lot of people is that over the past 3 years, China's stock market has lost $6 trillion in value, is it?
Yeah, something like that. That's pretty close.
What is happening with China's stock market?
Well, stock markets are based on perception, as you well know, and so there are a lot of indicators that affect that perception, and the perception is not good, and that's because the economy has effectively hit a wall, and I think that's something that would be interesting for your viewers to explore further. Is why is the economy hit a wall, and what does it mean?
Well, yeah, real quick, do you think the perception changed first or that the economy hit a wall first and that changed the perception?
I think the economy has started to hit a wall, and what happens is with an opaque system like China's, there are bits and pieces of evidence that start to dribble out, and then it paints a picture, and people start to connect the dots.
But guys like Jamie Dimon are saying, hey, the situation's not that bad.
Well, that's because, Jamie Dimon is like many Western financiers, like Wall Street, doesn't really understand the inner workings of a very opaque economy that was never designed for foreigners to understand in the first place. And so he's using terms that his investors, the general public in Western countries, they understand a single number. That is typically he'll use the GDP number, and it's based on completely false data. So what happens when you use a number like that based on false data? What comes out is you either see that China is booming or it's about ready to implode, and none of those are correct.
Is it also, do you think, maybe a little bit of a con, which is that if Wall Street executives say China's stock market's doing well, then it maintains the prices, so there's not as fast of a sell-off, and then they have time to get their money out, or at least they don't lose as much?
Well, absolutely, Matt, and that's really part of the Ponzi scheme, the way that the economy has been operating, and that the elite vanguard of the party has been taking advantage of the Wall Street types. Because what happens is that you take a company like Morgan Stanley or any number of others, BlackRock, for instance, they make money with the investors pouring their savings into IRA accounts or whatever the investment might be. And once you understand the way the economy is built, you'll see that that's pretty much a one-way street, meaning the foreign convertible currency goes into China, and unless the particular business has some means of trading the domestic currency to another company or another firm, they're not going to bring any profits out. They just have to the party has got it set, so they keep reinvesting and keep building the economy in China. So a company, for instance, like Disney, they have a pretty good setup, because what Disney does is, with their operations in China, is they take US dollars in through their investors. And what happens is that they go around and purchase in the local currency, the domestic yuan. They purchase the Mickey Mouses and the Cinderella dresses and so forth made in China to use in their various theme parks. So Disney can burn their profits in the local currency, whereas other companies who don't have that type of connection, they have a one-way street. And so the financial firms, Matt, you're right, they make their money by getting people to invest. And so there is a built-in, everything is great in China, kind of a situation that causes people to want to invest. And the brokerage firms, Wall Street, they make money on the investment. And the fact that the profits aren't coming back out is not their problem.
No, I was wondering, David, if we could kind of go into something you mentioned earlier, which is the idea that, people don't actually understand how the Chinese economy is built, and that it's way more complicated than the GDP number. I think people are more understanding that the GDP is often fake or
As Li
massaged.
Keqiang said, man-made and unreliable.
Yes, but then people try to come up with all these other ways to look at the economy, but there's essentially it's hard to see what's actually going on. So can you tell us what actually, how the economy really works in China?
Well, okay, so let's, interrupt me if it's not clear, and let me have a shot at this. After the Korean War, what happened was that the basically newly formed People's Republic of China faced a trade blockade from the United States. And the U.S. cut them off 100%, and the party returned with 100% blockade on exports to the United States. And that whole blockade lasted until about 15 years, till 1965. So it was during that period that in the early days that the Communist Party decided that they were going to build an economy that was essentially shock-proofed from the outside world. So if you look at the People's Republic of China, it is one of, let's call it maybe 5 or 6 economies in the world that have dual currencies, meaning that there is a local currency and there is the foreign exchange. Now, as all three of you probably know, the domestic yuan, domestic currency, sometimes called the renminbi, is not convertible on the open market. And the party wants it this way. Why is that? Because essentially it is a worthless script. It has no value except what the party assigns to it. And so that's used for operating internally inside the borders of China.
I just want to clarify. So it's not based on gold or anything like the US dollar. It's just completely, the government says it's worth this.
Well, I mean, in fairness, the U.S. currency is also a fiat currency.
Yeah.
So, and I can't think of any major economy that doesn't have a fiat currency. That is it's not backed by any gold or something like that. So why is then the renminbi different in that regard than, say, the U.S. dollar?
Because the U.S. dollar is convertible on the open market outside the country. You can use it and convert it into other currencies. And the internal domestic yuan is not. And so what has to happen is there is an organization within, high up within the party called the State Administration for Foreign Exchange. Interestingly, the acronym is SAFE, S-A-F-E. And that organization controls the movement of currency across the international border into China. So, as an example, a company that's going to do an investment is sending US dollars or other convertible foreign currency to China, and this organization takes and holds that currency. It's a safe controlled by the Communist Party. And then the state organization, SAFE, then issues the script that has no value to whatever company or individuals that it's directed to. It's kind of like, Matt, I don't know if you've ever been to, a carnival where you go and you take your money and you buy this script to go on various rides within the carnival. But if you go outside the carnival, you can't use the script at a 7-Eleven or a gas station for anything. It has no value. The reason that they have this dual currency economy is that the belief was during this period from the 1950 to 1965 that they wanted to build an economy that had no single point of failure. So, and they wanted to maintain control internally within the country. And so what they did was they built this dual currency economy controlled by this state administration for foreign exchange, SAFE, and that allows them to move financially, domestically within China. And it means that there's no cost of capital within China. So when someone wants to do a project, they print more script. Now, here's the interesting piece. There is a political cost because they're shifting priorities within the government, but there's not a cost of capital as a Western economist would understand it. Now, coming over back a little bit to Shelley, your point, the reason that the Western economists and the Wall Street types don't really understand the inner workings of the Chinese economy is because they're looking at it from the outside using the tinted lenses that they have acquired in their Western classic economic education. There are a few academics in China that are Westerners that understand how the economy works, but they're not going to write articles and books about it because they'll lose their stature with the party. The only people, foreigners, that really understand the inner workings of the party are those that have been in China for decades. They've done deals. They've done, like some of my clients and colleagues, they've actually done trades or transactions with the party. And so it's a matter of practical understanding how this works. So one final point here on this. When the 2008 mortgage meltdown occurred in our country and a lot of places around the world, that financial crisis, because China's currency did not float, that dual currency system acts as a shock absorber to protect the internal workings of their economy, and it also protects the party's control. And there are something like 5 or 6 other countries in the world that have an economy that's somewhat similar. Cuba, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, North Korea. Interestingly, they're all communist, or in the case of Laos, maybe Cambodia, communist leaning. And the reason that they have that setup is they're authoritarian, and it allows them to have absolute control internally within the country.